Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I have a fun little video for you today. So Denmark is a country full of history and long-standing traditions, some of which can seem a little weird or even shocking as a foreigner. And even though I've now lived here several years, I am constantly learning new traditions from this country. A few of these I had never even heard of, and they really shocked me, so stay tuned to learn about 5 crazy Danish traditions. So the first one is probably one of the first ones that I learned about when I first came to Denmark, just because it's a very uniquely Danish thing, but it's something called Pebersvend. So if you, man or woman, if you are single by the time of your 25th birthday, your friends will drag you out into the street and literally pelt you, douse you with cinnamon. You are just covered head to toe in cinnamon. And if you're unfortunate enough to still be single by the time of your 30th birthday, if you're unmarried still, your friends are going to do it all over again, except this time it's not going to be cinnamon, it's black pepper that they completely cover you in. Okay, so this next one I literally just learned the other day because in preparation for this video, I was asking my husband, my Danish husband, if there's any like school traditions or things that he grew up with that I wouldn't know because obviously I haven't been through the Danish school system, just any special traditions that I might not have heard about. And he told me about, so when you are graduating, when you're about 15, you're in the 9th grade over here in Denmark. You basically, that's your like last kind of ground school year where then you go on to gymnasium or like a college type level, not like American college, but just like you go into higher education after that time. And they have this thing over here where all the graduates from the 9th class, they'll buy these jumbo bags of caramels, think like little wrapped toffee caramels. And you could, there's specifically bags that you buy for this. And they go around to each of the other classrooms, so all the younger classes who aren't graduating. They systematically go room from room and pelt all the other children, viciously with these caramels. So it's literally just it's like the scene from Elf with the snowballs. It's just caramels flying everywhere. My husband was saying that the kids in the classrooms who are getting attacked, tables will be flipped over trying to duck for cover. And I was just asking him, so do you know when this is going to happen? He was saying, so it's always on the last day of school. So it'll be in end of June time. And you'll know that it's happening because you'll hear the screams of the other children as the graduates are approaching your classroom. So you know what's going to happen. And then when they're done with you, when they're finished pelting you with caramels and they go away off to the next classroom to victimize them, the victimization doesn't end there because you and all your classmates will turn on each other like a battle royale, scrambling for all this caramel that has just been thrown as basically a sweet treat that you can keep for yourselves. My husband was saying as well, back in the day, it was literally just a free-for-all and what you managed to grab, finders keepers, that was your caramel. But I think they maybe do it a little bit more fairly, a little bit more diplomatically these days where you might, your class would pool all the caramels that have been thrown at you and everyone kind of gets split out equally, so everyone gets some caramels. This one was very shocking to me because of course it's nice to have these little traditions, especially when it's a big step in life, you're going on to a higher education. But my husband was saying these kids can get really vicious. And when I Googled about this, because again, I'd never heard about it before he told me this just the other day, there was a recent article where a kid had put a nail, a metal nail in one of his caramels. And my husband was like, oh yeah, no, some kids get a little bit psychopathic about it. There would be you weren't supposed to do it, it was forbidden or frowned upon. I don't know if it's actually outright forbidden, but some kids back in his day, they would freeze the caramel, so they were extra hard when you were pelting kids. So it's really, and he was saying as well that some kids end up in the emergency room from caramel thrown injuries and all that stuff. So yeah, that's something that was definitely very foreign to me, but it seems like a very fun end of school tradition for kids over here in Denmark. And I know I get many Danish viewers across several generations. So let me know down in the comments if this is something that you did in your school, if you had any specific traditions surrounding this one that you did, were people a bit gentler than maybe my husband was describing. But yeah, let me know down in the comments if this is something that you did. I would love to hear. So the next tradition is another student-related one. So this is when kids are graduating from gymnasium, which is, like I mentioned earlier, the higher level of education. You might, if you're in Denmark around the last week of June, you might start to notice a sea of white caps everywhere on young kids around, I guess you're around 18 years old, 17, 18. And if you look closely, a lot of the hats have different colors. Like to me, they look like sailors' caps. I don't know if maybe that's kind of where they originated from. And then it's got a stripe of color, and we'll have some like insignias on it and things like that, which will signify what type of school you went to, what you studied, like your field, your area of study. So that's something you'll notice. But then more than that, again, this last week of June, so when they're all graduating, you will start to hear, if you're not expecting it, if no one has told you about this, it is quite shocking. You'll hear them before you see them, but basically all the students, they rent out these big open air trucks, and some of them literally just look like farm vehicles. It's not like fancy vehicles in any sense of the word. And it will be all your class, you'll pool together. So all your class will be on this truck, and you just literally drive around your town all day long, getting wasted, listening to booming music. And that's why I said you can hear them before you see them. They'll all have things like air horns, noisemakers, just making as much noise as you can just to celebrate, like we finally graduated. And then they spend the whole day going from house to house of all their classmates. And then each family, they'll have set up like food and drinks. So you kind of stop off like all along the way, getting more and more drunk. And it's just absolute madness, absolute craziness. It doesn't all happen on the same day, so it will usually be around like a week or so. You'll hear them in the distance, like, oh, that's another graduating like truck going past. But I didn't have anything like that for graduation, so I think that's just another fun thing that students do over here. So the next tradition is around weddings over here. There's a tradition, I don't know, I haven't seen it at a wedding, so I don't know. I don't think it's like every single wedding that does it, but it is something that's traditional here. After the bride and groom have their first dance, all the men will drag the groom out onto the dance floor, and they take off his sock and cut a hole in his sock. And then for the bride, it's apparently good luck if you can get like pieces of her veil. So the veil will just be like shredded basically. So if you're a bride who's maybe investing in an expensive veil, maybe plan for that if you're having a wedding in Denmark, because apparently the bigger piece of veil that you get, the luckier it is for the recipient. And again, if you're Danish, if you've been to a wedding that does this, please let me know down in the comments just your experience with it and maybe the backstory, because I was trying to Google a little bit about why, like the meaning behind this. And I think at least for the groom is to kind of signify that he doesn't have to like put on airs or impress other women so much anymore. So I guess hence the hole in the sock. But yeah, let me know down in the comments. And so the fifth one is around confirmation here in Denmark. So when kids are around 12 years old or so, they'll get confirmed in church, and there's the whole ceremony with it. They'll have the girls will have white dresses, the boys will be dressed up all smartly. And then once the ceremony is over, they go outside. And I think this is more of a newer thing. Like my husband was saying that it wasn't as much of a big affair as it is these days, but each child who has just been confirmed, they will have like a pimped out ride in some way, some kind of like cool ride that they'll like drive away from the church on. I'm talking like Lamborghinis, Harley Davidsons, but then it doesn't have to be something like impressive like that. Like it can also just be like, for example, my nieces, they like to do up their cargo bike, like decorate it and put lots of like balloons and stuff like that, and then they ride from the church back home. So it's something that usually the parents will plan for the child, but I think also the kid will have some kind of input, like, oh, it'd be cool if it was this kind of thing. And then it's just, you kind of spend some time like checking out, like, oh, like he's got a Lamborghini, wow, look at that. Like you spend some time in the church parking lot, and then everyone kind of like makes their way home in their like pimped out rides. But yeah, just as a foreigner, it's something like we don't do it in our culture at all. So it's nice to kind of observe this part of Danish culture. And I'm going to give you a bonus one as well. So this is the unofficial number 6 of this list. But for Midsommar over here in Denmark, so on the 23rd of June, they call it Sankt over here. They burn a witch on a giant bonfire. And of course, nowadays it's just a doll or like an effigy of a witch. And this is to symbolize, warding off witches or evil spirits, things like that. But it's quite gruesome because they put a firework that once it's ignited, like in the witch, it sounds like a witch's scream. Like it's quite morbid. But if you haven't experienced Sankt Hans in Denmark, I highly recommend coming around the June to experience that, because it's such a nice summer festival. They sing lots of traditional Danish songs, and yeah, it's just something that's really, really nice to experience over here. So I hope you enjoyed this fun little video about weird and wonderful Danish culture. Again, if you're Danish, please let me know your experiences with these down in the comments. And also, I'm sure there's many that I've missed. So let me know down in the comments if there's any other Danish traditions that you think foreigners might not know about that could be interesting. But yeah, thanks so much for watching, and see you next time.